Now that you know the topics we'll be discussing today, Otis Sanford is ABC24's political analyst. Pepper Baker, I should know that. I stand right next to you every night. The better half of the anchor team here at ABC24. And we also have Deidre Malone. She's the founder of and CEO of the Carter Malone Group, who happens to have as a client
the Memphis and Shelby County School Board.
Yes. So full disclosure there.
Full disclosure. They're my client.
So you have an interest in this, but
do.
we're anxious to get your point of view, and then we'll have some questions for you from the other side too. Okay. Otis, why don't you start us off today by just talking about the meeting itself. Yet another embarrassing display in many, many ways. Yeah. What are your thoughts about the decision to oust the superintendent by a vote of 6-3?
Well, the meeting itself was similar to the December 17th meeting in some respects, although I think December 17th was worse than this past week. But the decision to fire her, pretty much, in my view, had been made. They had a report from Robert Spence that laid out some pretty serious charges against the superintendent, and there was no room for some middle ground, which I thought should have been examined a little bit more. The community was so upset about this that maybe a middle ground could have been reached to at least put her on some kind of performance plan similar to the recommendation from the school board member, Hewitt Garcia. But the majority of the board members, and we're talking about 6, so it wasn't like a 5-4 decision here. They were ready to move on from Superintendent Feagins.
So Pepper, as we were watching the live stream of that meeting, you had an interesting observation about the order in which things took place.
Yes, you know, I mentioned this before, even on the December meeting. It seems like the public was getting the information from Attorney Spence or General Counsel Spence after they had already given their public outcry. So I always just wondered, like, if I want to give a reasonable reaction that I feel informed about, why not learn the report and the findings from the district first, and then I can make a little bit more of an educated response. It struck me how much Feagins has the public support behind her without having a full school year under her belt too. So that was just always interesting to me to see the public come out in such support for her. But then again, that report also wasn't made public until after the meeting too. So I feel like this might be more questions.
Well, you see where I'm going. There's a reason why we're going down the table in this direction.
Yes.
So how about it? Deidre, why was there no effort really to talk about some sort of middle ground, maybe some performance improvement plan or something for the superintendent, and the order in which it was decided to have the public speak before they actually knew all the facts? Was there a method to that?
So there is a policy that is set in place on how the school board has their meetings, and their public comments are always at the beginning of each meeting.
That's always the way it is.
That's the way it is. So that's their policy. And like at the county commission, it's on the back end. After the meeting, you hear from people on different issues. But that's the school board's policy.
Okay.
So let me check that box. That's that box. And so what was the other question, Robert?
Why no middle ground?
Richard?
Why was it fire or not fire? Why not some kind of improvement plan or something?
Well, I think that if you recall, the previous school board had some concerns, and some of them articulated that at the end of their terms. Former Chair Althea Green, Mauricio Calvo. So at that point, she was four months in to her superintendency. Then the new board came in. They had an opportunity to get to know her and get to work with her. Some of them feel strongly that communication was a big issue. They would email and they would ask questions and would not get a response. So I guess, and it just kept building. It kept building. So a lot of these school board members, and most of them, I have to say I've gotten to know them really well, are really in tune with what their districts want and what they expect. And so for them, it was about, you really need to be able to answer these questions for me. What's going on with contracts? What's going on with all of these social programs that we need for our students? Why are these contracts not being signed? They're asking the questions and they're not getting responses. And so at that point, I guess they felt strongly that they needed to do something in terms of, should they try and work something out, like Board Member Mark Garcia Hewitt recommended. I think they were at the point where, you know, if you're 8-9 months into a job and you feel like someone's being dishonest with you or not telling you the truth, do you really retain them?
But the new school board members had only been there since September, though.
Oh, that's true. But
And so I'm not sure that they really had enough time to really absorb everything that needed to go on and make the kind of decision that you can make, especially one this magnanimous in 3 months.
okay.
What do you think about that?
So I'm going to say that if someone works for you, Otis, and
they
they're
have
not
in the past.
responsive, or they feel like your employee's not being honest with you,
Yeah.
then are you going to keep them? I doubt that very seriously. And so they had a decision to make, and they have the documentation. They feel strongly about it. That's the reason they decided to make the decision that they made Tuesday night. Now, granted, Chair Doris Coleman was the one who brought the resolution. The 3 items in the resolution were her items. These school board members all had different concerns and items that they wanted to articulate too. And so it just built.
So let me ask you about 2 board members that were very vocal on the other side, Michelle McKissick and Amber Hewitt Garcia, who really felt that some board members were getting information way before they did. In fact, the Spence report specifically, board member McKissick had said, I only got this an hour ago. Could that have been handled better as far as, or do you feel the information was equally disseminated to all the board
I
members?
can tell you that I don't know what happened in their executive session, but it's my understanding that they all got the report at the same time.
They all had it for about an hour before
Yep,
it was ready to go.
that's true. But, you know, having been on the board and the outside counsel received information from these board members, right? So the documentations that he had to create his report, where did he get them from? Inside the system, right? So they should have been, you know, those board members should have been familiar with the accusations and the documentation.
But going back to what you said earlier, and yes, I used to be in a management position, and I was a little concerned about the steps here in that short of firing, couldn't there not have been some kind of probationary period or put you on notice that unless these issues improve, we will revisit this, and firing could be a part of that? I think with the community uproar, why wasn't that even considered?
So let me ask you this then, Otis. If I were your employee, and if that was what I was interested in, don't you think I would call you and ask you for that opportunity?
Well, I mean, I don't
Okay.
know about that.
PR. She is.
I'm just saying,
Answer a question.
I'm just saying, if I wanted to keep my job, I would call every board member and say, how can we work this out? Is there an opportunity for me to work with you? What can I do to make it better?
So that never happened.
So that never happened.
Now,
Well,
during the December
silence
meeting,
means yes.
during the December
No.
meeting, Feagins did say that she had offered to meet with each board member and
She did.
and had been declined by at least 2. And so from December into January, that still didn't happen.
So meetings mean we can talk about business, we can talk about X, Y, and Z, but I guess my question, Pepper, is if I want to keep my job, if there's some middle ground to be met, then I'm going to ask you, board member, can we meet? Is there an opportunity for us to get this right together? And I guess my question is, did that happen?
All right, let's hear from Attorney Robert Spence, who was also hired by a majority of the school board to investigate and look into the allegations against the superintendent.
Dr. Feagins violated her employment contract no less than 8 times.
And he went on to say violated board policy 9 times. Fairly serious allegations, yes, Otis, that maybe...
Oh, yeah, very serious allegations. I mean, we're talking about, and this is to Deidre's point here, we're talking about dishonesty, lack of truthfulness, maybe even some cover-up when it comes to whether documents had been signed or turned in before the deadline, all of that. those are some serious allegations here. And, you know, Robert Spence is a credible, longtime attorney in this community, and so I'm willing to give him some benefit of the doubt here that he would not get up there and say things that he knew to not be true. So that needs to be taken into consideration. But again, you got this uproar in the community. It was up to the school board to try to find a way to lessen the temperature and maybe find a middle ground. I'm going to stick with that.
Well, I'm just going to say, Otis, that I think that there's an opportunity on the back end to do that. And, you know, this may play out in court, so there's not a whole lot that a lot of people can say about this. But I think Dr. Rod Richmond has the temperament and is enriched and grounded in this community, and a lot of people look forward to see what he can do.
Way over for this segment, but real quick. Real quick. The legal fight. Everyone's talking about the looming legal fight. In fact, that was my favorite quote of the night from the superintendent was the school board has chosen chaos over children, litigation over leadership, and I'll see you in court. So we're expecting this to happen, yet I'm hearing from sources on both sides that things are pretty ugly in terms of information we haven't heard that hasn't come out, that this might likely never see a courtroom. That a lot of predictions, this is just going to be settled out of court and bye-bye and take your settlement and that's it. What are you thinking about that?
Well, you know, I don't know, but what I can say is that whatever happens, I know the board's attorney, outside counsel, will be ready for whatever happens.
All right, we got to leave it there. When we come back, we'll talk about the other side of this whole thing, and that's what happens next. What do we think about this new interim superintendent? Will the state get involved? We'll be right back.